5, 4, 3.
Welcome, everyone, and pull up a seat at the table. It is lunchtime in Rome. Tonight's episode 193 is entitled Not Over It. Very often you hear, I'm over it. People have said it to you. You've said it. The thing is, they're not, and neither are you. Why is that? Why can't you just move on? We'll be talking about that at the table this evening. Please pull up a seat at the table and join us. First-time listeners can subscribe on your favorite podcast app or watch us live or later at youtube.com/@lunchtimeinrome. Visit us at lunchtimeinrome.com. While there, you can take our relational needs questionnaire. Make sure to follow us on all social media, and it would be great if you give us a 5-star review. Jay, what specifically is this podcast about?
Being alone is the worst. Good times aren't as good, and bad times are worse when you're all alone. Romans 12:15 says, rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. That is how you keep people from being alone and what this podcast is all about. Ben's sitting in for Chris tonight. We demonstrate that in the first 15 minutes of the podcast and talk about it for the rest. So while it may not be 12:15 in Rome, we're treating it like it is.
Lunchtime in Rome. Ben.
In for Chris.
In for Chris.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Yeah, we got the much younger, sleeker looking version of Chris tonight.
Yes.
With the biceps.
Much more on time.
All right. Much more on time. Early.
Much.
I mean,
Earlier than me. I'm usually the first one here.
that's true. Well, you brought all kinds of gifts tonight,
Yes.
so we got that going on.
Yeah, I've come from lands afar.
Some call it the York of New.
Yeah. It's been a lot over the past week.
How's Manhattan?
Oh, yeah.
I tried to get in and out as quick as possible. It wasn't bad.
It's just a lot.
It was a lot. There's so much concrete and so many different
Some call it a
roads.
jungle.
They do. I'm so grateful for
Here.
a GPS. Well, here.
Where the streets make perfect sense.
Yeah, kind of do. But no, I'm grateful for GPS and being able to read a GPS in real time, because when you're there, like, you're in it, man. You're trying to drive into Manhattan. I've drove through the Holland Tunnel. I drove over the Brooklyn Bridge, and
I
drove,
own that, actually. Somebody sold it to me a while back.
Really? How
wow.
many shillings or
20.
whatever? 24 trinkets?
Nothing.
And I drove over the George Washington Bridge all over the past week. And
Wow.
yeah, it was great.
I mean, those are some iconic
Those are very
monuments.
I'm driving
Yeah.
through the Holland Tunnel, and I get to the end of it, and I'm like, this is in so many like dystopian movies.
Right? Right.
And other movies.
Yeah, not dystopian
and regular,
movies.
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Just regular,
Regular
type.
type.
Dystopian.
Dystopian.
Yeah. Just regular dystopian.
Yeah, but honestly, it wasn't as bad driving into Manhattan as I thought it would be. And the trip was exhausting. Those trips are always kind of exhausting, but it's also, I know a guy named Kono, and
Yeah, you do.
he's a legend. And at some point, I want everybody in the world
He
to
should
meet
be
him.
on.
He needs to be on.
Yeah.
And once I finalize this whole thing that I'm doing with the software and everything, somehow, some way, we're going to have him on. But I gave the three of you guys a Manhattan special, which is
That sounds like something that's not.
it's pretty special. Just be careful opening it. It tends to
Now,
burst.
is that his brand?
No.
Oh.
So no, it's a buddy of his, and what it is, it's like a soda, but an espresso soda. So it's coffee, but it's a soda. It's kind of creamy, and it definitely gets you going. And if you're not really prepared for the caffeine, it definitely makes you crash. But it's wonderful. And he gave me Kono's the kind of guy who I said, man, I miss that soda. Like, cause I had it in 2020 when I was there the last time, and I had one of them, and I was like, these are great. He's like, yeah, they're so good. And I told him this time, I was like, man, I'd love one of those sodas. He ends up getting me a case of it.
Sure. Case.
Yeah.
Why not?
I like how it's Manhattan special, but it's made in Brooklyn.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
Bottled in Hoboken.
But it's
all
it's
kinda-
hand brewed from freshly roasted coffee beans. I mean, it looks legit. I can't wait to try it.
But the thing about Hoboken is when you're driving around that just giant metropolis, like, there's just cities in front of you, and you're like, yeah, that might be Newark. That might be Hoboken. And it's all like part of New York. It's staggeringly complicated. And like around Pittsburgh, we're like, oh, that's definitely Pittsburgh. and there's no disputing that.
Right.
And there's one of them.
There's one of them. But around there, you're on some random highway. There's like the city like jutting
Yeah.
out into the sea, and you're like, I wonder what that is. It's surreal.
It feels endless when you're there, and I don't like it.
I'm not a big fan,
No.
but I mean, I had a good trip this time.
Ben, have you been?
I have not been.
I have not been.
It's worth a trip. I mean, there is I do recommend making the trip because it is quite amazing. From a man-made perspective, like
Pretty low on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not high on mine, and I've been there.
I mean,
Yeah.
how many disc golf courses could be in Manhattan?
We should probably find out.
0, but they could put one in.
But
Central
like
Park.
it's so weird because the first night I went, I drove out on Sunday night and I stayed in Newark, which is basically right across the bridge from Manhattan.
Yeah.
And the way that I went to get into Manhattan the next day, it took me perpendicular, I guess, vertical, and the Statue of Liberty was on my right.
Yeah.
And I was so concentrating on driving, and I didn't look ahead beforehand, but I was so concentrating on driving that I didn't even see it. And that's how big and complicated it is. Like, that's one of those things
Yeah.
where like, I need to see this.
Yeah.
Totally missed it,
Yeah.
and then drove right around it into Manhattan. So, yeah, it was a good trip. And then I came back, and Ethan's birthday was yesterday. I took him to get his driver's permit.
Yeah.
So there's a permitted 16-year-old new driver out on the road right now. Well, not right now.
Right.
But I had him out twice yesterday on the road.
Nice.
On Frankstown.
Which car?
The Sportage.
Yeah.
I really, really, really wish I had the Ferd.
Yeah. But the Sportage is good to learn on.
Yeah.
I think it'd be
I want-
too confident and secure in the Ford. Like, if I hit something, it's not gonna damage it.
Yeah.
Just be knocking other cars off the road.
No, I'd love him to do that. But it was kind of surreal sitting in the passenger side. And we had him drive. We had him drive last night. We went to my parents' house for dinner, and then I asked him if he wanted to drive home. So it's night, and like, I want to throw him in the fire. Like, I just want him to be like, yeah, let's go yield onto the parkway. But this driving experience home last night from my parents at night made me realize, wait a second, maybe I have to pull back and let him be comfortable in what he wants to do, because
That makes sense.
yeah, because we were driving home last night. We drove onto Upper Collins. I stopped and let him take over. So we were about to drive through the high school, and he kind of got flustered. It was night. There was another car coming. He tried to turn and didn't put his turn signal on, shut the lights off, and then actually flicked the high beams. I'm like, flick the high beams off, and then he just shut all the lights off altogether.
And you're still on the school property at this point?
We're driving up.
Oh, like by
Collins.
Poop Field?
Yeah. Well, no.
Oh, you're on
not even
Collins.
before. We're on
Oh.
Collins, turning on.
I don't know any of the names of
So,
those
like,
roads. I've lived here
there
47 years.
There's so many things happening, and at that moment, I was like, maybe I need to dial it back a bit, because I just want him to drive.
Well, and it's interesting because this happens a lot. Because like I would think, well, he's got good hand-eye
Well, I mean, he's
coordination.
into video games.
He's into video
know?
games, but there is something about driving that is not the same. And
There's so many
It's
real world variables that
just
you
like
have to.
just like the church disc golf course, it is the equalizer. Because you can have somebody that's like I play the drums. I'm moving all four of my appendages, and then. But when you're learning to drive, it's new muscle memories. It's new, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you really got to learn to get comfortable with that. There's the turn signal.
Ben, you agree with that as our most recent driver in the group?
Yes, yeah. I think you have to get comfortable with your car before you can get comfortable with other drivers and the road. You know, there's that first level of connection before the second.
Because the other
That's a good way
driver
to put
is
it.
another element that's entering into
Right.
your world at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did your parents walk you through like the initial days after you got your permit?
So it was all my dad who pretty much taught me the driving stuff. We first went to a parking lot up near Fox Chapel, and that was
RIDC.
where RIDC, yes, RIDC Park, yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
That's a good place to
it was a really nice
'Cause
place.
nobody's really driving around up there. You got ins and outs, the parking lots. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, a couple lanes and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it was really, a good place for me to just get comfortable with the car. And next he took me to like the back roads of Plum. So I could be like, okay, there's a little bit of cars there. I can start to get comfortable. But there, the road was ups and downs, bumpy things. And he did a great job of like not getting mad at me. And I could only imagine like how scary it is at times. You have, you're riding with someone, your life depends on them. And
That's why you go to the parking lot.
that's why, right, that's why you start there.
Well, that's true because on the way back from my parents, Abby was in the back seat, Lex was in the back seat, I was in the front seat. And at one point, like Ethan's about to turn onto Frankstown. And I told him, like, across from the bank, there's Mount Hope Church.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can pull in here if you're not comfortable turning right onto Frankstown and driving home the rest of the way. And he just passed it right up, and I was like, "Oh man, we're doing this." I look back at Abby and Lex. I'm like, "Well, maybe it was good knowing you."
And there was one time I was turning left. I was like getting ready to turn left into my neighborhood, but I didn't slow down enough to make the turn. So I turned to my parents and I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't slow down enough. And I just step on the gas and I go make like a U-turn. And they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm sorry.
There's a lot of I'm sorry's.
Yeah.
In the driving.
It really is live fire, and there's nothing you can do to replicate real world, And I started thinking about like, battle scenarios. Like if like we have guns or whatever, and like what happens if you're in a situation where like it's live fire, like this is live fire for this kid. And he has turn signals and windshield wipers, and we've really not gone through that stuff. So as a dad, I'm going to try to back off and just be more.
Well, then there's like when we got Joe his driving lessons and because it was not going well. And that's when I said, look, just because I know how to drive doesn't mean I know how to teach how to drive.
How was it not going well?
It was just, I was getting frustrated and he was getting like scared. And I mean, I knew him just because you can do something doesn't mean you can teach it.
Right.
So he wasn't ready for the prime time yet, in my opinion. It was going to take forever. And so we got David Miller, Penn Hills grad, Penn Hills Sports Hall of Fame member. And he first day, he pulls up at our house and he's like, all right, Joe, get in because we're heading downtown. And like Rachel and I are like, oh, that's so, wait, really? And he's like, well, we're not going into town, but we're going to take the Parkway. And you're just like, he's not. And
that's why we hired you, buddy. Pull it back.
And well, in his defense though, does he have the?
He's got the brake.
He's got the He has some control.
Passenger side brake.
Oh,
yeah, which is huge.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like his last lesson, they went to Vandergrift or Katanning up 28 the whole way. And
Narnia.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah, you can. So
That
yeah.
is far.
But it's a rite of passage.
Yeah. But
Wow.
he aced his permit test. We were in PennDOT for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours by the time everything was said and done. And we're sitting there and I'm like, so this is the first level of hell sitting in here. And I said, the second level is court. The third level is jail. Like, let's just not try to be in the system as much as possible.
Welfare or like unemployment. Like that's
there's like
like
a level in there.
when Trey was obviously still alive and I had to renew his Medicaid or whatever he was on and everything else and it had lapsed and I had to go downtown to the welfare office.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, just downtown.
Well, sure, but
That's part of the
it was gosh, you just feel like they treat you like you're the lowest of the low. And then this like lady came in and she was like coughing and hacking and this is pre-COVID, obviously. And then like an hour later they came and like took her and then they took her chair and they asked if anybody been talking to her and I'm like, there's nothing good about that.
Wow. That's kind of wild.
And then of course you finally get to speak to somebody and they're like, we can't help you. And you're like, well, this is
I've been here for
3
2.5 hours.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wow.
So, yeah, there's different levels of government hell.
there are.
There's got to be auditing. There's that. That'd be fun.
I was trying to think of other ones, and like the only three that came to my mind were DMV and court and jail.
Yeah.
Anyways, what's up with you guys? I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Well, you were out and you had a lot to say, and you got a lot going on with turning 16. So it was good.
and all
a big
the
deal.
all the
Very
house stuff I'm
exciting.
doing.
I texted him back and forth. He was very excited.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
And he said you texted him too, and I appreciate that.
I did.
So Duke, who has sat at the table,
Some call him Juke.
right? It's wrong. We've been going to the gym, and I'm actually pretty surprised, because Duke introduced this way of working out as it's like a.
And of course, Duke has a different way of working out.
Oh well, it's
more
not
analytical.
Yeah,
More analytical.
That's very true, but it is very analytical, where it's very minimalistic, but it's a whole body workout, and I've gotten like a lot stronger. Like I've noticeably like went up in weight, like
Of what you're pushing, not
quickly.
what you're weighing.
right. Well, probably both.
Right.
Because you build muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
By the way, he told me last Sunday how much he values that time with you.
Well, yeah, and I value as well because it's a huge support to me. Because I mean, that's one of my biggest emotional needs is support, and I ain't going if if I don't have that accountability. Honestly,
and acceptance.
uh-huh.
So therefore, you're not going to let him down,
Right.
and you're not going unless he asks you.
Right.
So it hits
Right.
both of your emotional needs.
Yeah. So it's been good, and I really do feel like I'm getting stronger, and yeah. And then
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Celebrate that.
Does Max look in from outside? Or?
Well, we'll meet up with Max sometimes, you know, because his schedule is a lot more fluid, where
and or variable.
variable. That's probably the better word for it, because Duke and I pretty much go at lunchtime Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
And you guys are doing Planet Fitness?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's when they have the donuts.
They have like a pizza party or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, but I've never seen it.
Right.
So
That'd make
I
much
wouldn't
sense.
even
I think
participate.
it's only
in
like
it
once a
anyway.
month,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wouldn't participate in it anyway, but it doesn't matter. But we've also recently here in the Pittsburgh area have had some nice weather for once, because like I
been
feel like we've
unbelievable.
been stuck under this filter of clouds for I don't know 5 months. Like I feel like there was this long dreary stretch.
With no excitement.
No,
Yeah,
like there was
hasn't
no
been a
snow.
snowstorm.
Like we
It-
didn't
it
even
really has.
we didn't even take Maggie snow like
Boarding.
sledding anywhere.
Let me ask you this
boring.
question about the weather, though. Has it been less snowy or more windy? Like, which is more remarkable? Because I think it's been
more
so
windy.
windy.
Yeah, it's been way
But is
more
it more
windy.
remarkable how windy it has been or how little snow we've had?
The wind
Which
makes
is more
sen-
remarkable?
The wind makes sense right now because of the season change.
El Nino. No, I don't know.
You usually have some windy
Niña.
days coming with
Niña.
the springtime.
I think they're both remarkable.
I think it is both remarkable because this has been the mildest winter that I can remember, except for when Eric drove that one time and
Sure.
for Tyler Mountain Water.
It's the only one at the table that ever delivered water.
That's
Right. But
forget
it has been incredibly mild. But yes, you're right. It's been really windy.
So windy.
Yeah.
All that being said, Amy and I went for a walk after work today, and it was
Aw.
lovely because
That's
like not a
wonderful.
cloud in the sky, crisp air, and it was just nice.
Sans Maggie, like you didn't
Sans
have
Maggie,
She was making dinner.
because we were
Oh, good.
waiting to go over my parents for dinner, because Maggie was over there. My mom was watching her today, but yeah, it was just nice because we've very much been. I think I've said this a week or two
ships
ago.
passing the night.
Not so much ships passing in the night, but like we've been giving each other the leftovers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like our tank is empty at the end of the day, and we're just like meh. You
Sure.
know, like nothing's wrong, but.
Not everything's right.
Not everything's right.
It's
we're-
good.
Like
It's
we're fine.
fine.
Yeah, we're
Right.
fine. But like
Yeah.
there's not much gas at the end of the day to just put anything of purpose
Yep.
for us to do. So
Well, that's good. I'm glad you guys connected like that on
Yeah.
this nice
Felt good.
sunny day.
yeah,
Because it is like I was sitting in my office and the sky was just blue.
yeah,
And then even on the drive over here, the sky's limitless and the moon is so big. As I'm driving out of my
Yeah.
plan, it's like right over the graveyard, but it was huge. And it really, like, I definitely
When you
have
get it,
noticed it
yeah.
the past couple
Yeah.
days.
when you get a clear night with a big moon like that, that's really fun too.
yeah.
You talk about, giving leftovers and stuff like that. And Eric, you and I have talked about how I've had to come to grips with, when Rachel's just not okay because of work.
Mm-hmm.
And that like, I don't have to fix it and I can't fix it, and it doesn't mean she's mad at me. It's just she's tired and she has nothing left and everything
Right.
else. And so we've actually gotten pretty good at it, like of just understanding, hey, it's kind of a war zone, and come June you'll be okay, and we'll celebrate on weekends, and I've noticed it in the last week or so. Like I still ask, hey, how was your day? And her line is always death by 1,000 paper cuts, and it's so funny because it's like not even worth talking about,
Right.
Because there's nothing remarkable. There's no like
Nothing
she said
new.
today, she goes, there's no hope.
Yeah.
We're just in this death march.
Yeah. Mhm.
And we're gonna make the best we can. And I said, so unless there's something, I said, it's not like you got bit. She goes, oh, I got bit today. and she started telling me the story. And she goes, but I mean, it wasn't an angry bite. And I started cracking up so hard. I'm like, I love that your job, that you're like, I got bit. but it wasn't an angry bite. And then she listed the 5 different types of bites that she can get from a child. Because it's exploring bite, it's an angry bite, it's a
Love bite.
a whatever. I mean, it was so hilarious. I got bit, but it wasn't an angry bite. So
No,
But
go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're here. Man. I want you to talk.
I was just gonna say, if I got bit, that would be a remarkable day. That would be something to share.
That would be a
Yeah.
story.
And she's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do celebrate, Jay, how you are so intentional about finding like the weekends, the getaways. And, you may
yeah.
not have done it in the past, month or two, but like when you told the story about you guys went to the arcade in Cleveland.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Like you're very intentional.
well, we got to
about
put
that.
something in there.
You have to.
Got to have those little breaks in the action. And then this Sunday, Rachel and I and Bella are going to Erie and spending the night. And then she's touring Mercyhurst in the
Okay.
morning.
Oh, cool.
Which will kind of complete, because she's
college
also
tour.
accepted to Albright, but it's like, it's 4 hours away.
Yeah.
And, whatever. So we have a tour Monday morning with Mercyhurst. So that'll be fun. Just a private one as compared to the big,
okay.
admitted student day. at
I feel
Allegheny.
like that'd be kind of nice. Private tour.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. So
Better than the group.
I already found a breakfast place, so we're good to go.
All right.
Does she know what she wants to do yet?
What do you mean, like which school?
Well, like major wise.
Yeah, I mean, she wants to do psychology so that she can become like a junior high guidance counselor.
Okay.
Which between everybody here at the table, just us, I'm like, yeah, everybody wants to be a guidance counselor to help kids until they become a guidance counselor and realize we're not helping any kids. We're just filling out IEPs and doing scheduling. But I mean, she's passionate about it, so we'll push that forward.
Yeah.
We're actually going up next, actually the week right before Easter weekend, that Thursday, Friday, we're going up to Rochester, New York, to do a tour. So
really?
Yeah, like already Ethan's like, he's focused.
What is it, like
Sorry.
RIT?
That's great.
As soon as he gets that license, he's gone.
RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology?
Yes, that's what it is. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to be gone for a night and do the day thing.
They'll be
and try to
chomping
come
at the
back.
pit, getting themselves a little sophomore up there.
Yeah.
They'll be like, if you put your deposit in now,
Right.
we'll guarantee you first classes. Speaking of classes, Ben's in college. How's life, Ben?
I am.
And Ben is a class in and of himself.
He's a class act.
Wow, thanks, guys.
I got it.
No, it's been pretty good. Honestly, uneventful, typical college life. I've had the privilege to go on a couple basketball trips this spring.
Ah,
as
cool.
as a member of the band, I don't play basketball.
Could have fooled me.
No, I know, but
I mean, you look like you're bred for it, man.
I mean, maybe someday. So
Doubt it.
I already got to go on the Pitt Women's ACC tournament,
Okay.
and that was fun. We unfortunately lost the first game, so we were there for about 2 days. But that was
Where was it?
Was that like
it was in
round,
Greensboro.
Oh, yeah.
was that like a round robin? Like you lose, you're out. You win, you're.
Exactly. Yeah. So as soon as we lose, we go home. So we lost the first game.
So you're in a smaller pep band
Yes.
on top of marching band?
Yes.
That's cool.
Yes. Yeah.
I like it.
Something to do in the spring. It's
And
nice.
you went to the bowl game this year?
Yes.
Yeah?
Oh, yes. I think that is the best
Wow.
sports game I have ever been to.
Wow.
I've been
Sports game.
I've been to a lot.
Where they scored the ball.
Of all the sports.
They shot the
It's
thing.
not even just football, it's all of sports. That's what he's saying.
I know
Sports game.
that was my point.
Yes.
But
I got you, Ben.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that.
Band nerds unite. That's good.
But yeah, so it was just amazing, the ending and everything. But so I'm going to go on the NCAA men's tournament
Nice.
coming up. We still don't know where we're going for that.
And that could be anywhere.
It could be
Is that the
anywhere.
March Madness?
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
March Madness is super fun.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. We were number 1 in our
ACC.
Yes, in the
Conference.
ACC conference. Thank you.
Finished fifth.
That was the word. Yeah. Yep. It's funny how that happens.
And they won today, though.
But besides that, it's wonderful to be home. I'm on spring break,
Yeah.
and it is a pleasure to be here. And it's just great to see my family again. I haven't seen them in about 2 months, so
Wow.
it's just really
It's
great to be home.
incredible the difference between Joe and Ben
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as college experience goes. Like,
Yeah.
they both go to Pitt. They happen to live in the same apartment. And Joe is never down there, and Ben is never home.
Yeah.
And that's just the way they handle it,
Yeah.
which we have certainly a topic to go over today, but I want to hear from you just a little bit more, Ben. Last spring was a bit of a rough period for you. Yes?
Yes, correct.
Sort of the fall football was over and you kind of got a little, for lack of a better term, dark.
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't seem that way now. What's the difference?
So I think a big part of it was last semester, I had a lot of free time for sort of some introspection. I don't know if I would say I was depressed, but I had a lot of self-condemnation going on. Like just a lot of, I had time to examine myself like I had never had before. And I had academics, and I got really into academics because I didn't really have anything else going on in my life at that point. And so I came to a couple of realizations, like realizing, okay, I'm not perfect. It's okay that I'm not perfect. And I just had to sort of, I think it was part of a transition to adulthood and really seeing the world. And so I've made that transition. And so now I'm in a better place this semester.
So when you were in that dark place, did you just keep thinking like, I'm not good enough?
Yeah, I would analyze like mistakes I've made in the past.
Just crazy. And I don't mean that like you're crazy, but like the three of us sitting here thinking of you sitting down there, Pitt, beating yourself up when it's like anybody would want Ben.
Yeah.
Right.
There isn't an adult listening to this or that has a student at Pitt that wouldn't swap their kid out for
Yeah.
Ben.
I was going to say,
Maybe
there's people that
me.
want to, there's people that want to be Ben.
Right. Yeah. And yet you're sitting there being like, I'm the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That really means a lot coming from you guys. But also, in addition to that, I'm also like, I have a church down there that I go to, and I'm a little more social. I'm going to the gym, so it's nice to have some
Wow,
things
good.
that, yeah. So all of that,
Yeah.
Is it Dwight Schrute's Gym for Muscles?
that is correct.
Ah, right.
Yes, I on a strict bulking diet of beets every day.
But honestly, like, if you don't keep active, like there's times for that introspection, but like when you get into those extended times of it, that's when you really can start to get into a really dark place. We're made for movement. We're made for, kind of conquering things. And so I can kind of understand how you got to that point, but man, yeah, like for you to have self-condemnation about yourself, like it's such a lie.
I always told when I was working in Young Life and dealing with obviously high school students and then college leaders and being a coach, I would always say, in college you can do two things, school and a sport, school and work,
Right.
And if you're going to try to do three, and hopefully, you can always do like two. And I'm like, school better be one of them. But what's interesting is I never said to them, you better have two, because if it's just school,
Yeah.
you're going to lose it. Or,
Right, right.
You have to have two. You probably can't do three.
Yeah.
But because like I did school, worked, and volleyball had to go by the wayside because I had to work more, but it's interesting that if you just do one, it's not going to be enough.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go ahead.
I was going to say, but then as you get into adulthood and like you start having kids and a house and stuff, it's like, I kind of wish I only had one thing,
Oh gosh, yeah.
Grass is always greener.
But like that's because you've leveled up a lot over the course of those 5-10 years. But to be sitting in school and just being like, well, I'm just doing school, I don't really have much else going on, you haven't matured to that place yet of being able to sit with yourself. Those are the times where you do find yourself, and sometimes that can be like, it's like looking into a black mirror sometimes, and it sounds like that's what was going on with you.
I've heard it be called the discipline of self-isolation. I think that's a good way to describe it.
Was that Jung or?
Oh, I'm not sure who
Nietzsche?
said it.
I don't know.
Could be a Young.
You went Young to Nietzsche.
I don't know. Could be the guy down the block now.
I miss the measurables of college for sure.
The measurables.
Oh yeah, I mean like getting a grade. That's how I did.
Yeah.
And you're in year 3. You're in year 2.
I'm this far along towards
Yeah.
my goal. I'll be graduating once I do all this. I worked this many hours. This was my paycheck. I mean, there were some good times there.
Objective feedback.
And you get to meet a lot of people, talk to a lot of people, form and build a lot of relationships. And sometimes in college, but also in life, there are problems in relationships, and there are hiccups, and there are fights, and there is trauma. And what very often happens is people come along and they're like, you know what? I'm just over it. I'm over it. And they don't, not even in a sarcastic way, like, oh, I'm over it, but just, I don't know, I'm over it. I got past it. I got past it. I'm over it. And what we wanted to talk about tonight is the fact that probably, no, you're not.
Right. I hear that and I'm like, are you really?
You're just not, 9 times out of 10, you are simply not over it.
Like if it was you saying that to me, I'd be like, okay, he probably is. Cause
Well, let's start there.
all right,
I think if you use the phrase, I'm over it,
you're probably not.
you're not over it. You would say like,
you might be a redneck if
you might not be over it if you use the phrase over it. But I mean, you would say, because healthy, what are some healthy things you would say? If somebody, instead of saying, I'm over it, hey, what happened with that relationship or the way that you were raised, or
it was a really tough time.
maybe still wrestling with it a little bit.
I would say like recognizing that it was a tough time, but then calling out like what is good now, or if somebody came alongside me and attached a comfort to the hurt, and I say like, this really helped me through this tough time and it's enabling me to stand today.
that's
Yeah.
like it was a really dark time or it was a really bad fight, but so and so really came alongside me and just made me just feel that I wasn't crazy and I was okay.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I think there are very rare times where you can definitively say, you know what, I am over that. And like that's an entire gut wrenching process for you. I mean, maybe not in every case, but like some of the big things in life, you're like, it's a lot. So, but people do use it so casually where they're like, yeah, over it.
Well, I think the difference is if you say you're over it, it looks like it was an obstacle. But in true healing, it's something that you have grown through and healed from. You don't, if you don't say you get over a cold
Or a hurdle, like a hurdle. Like I'm just picturing a runner right now. Oh, yep, I'm over that.
right. And I think for the context of tonight, we're talking about something as serious as trauma. Somebody went through a lot of stuff as a kid, and you can hear them as an adult being like, yeah, but that's when I was a kid. I'm over it.
Throwing up their hands. Yeah.
No, you're not. Or it can be a broken relationship. It can be, arguments, broken relationships, but like just a disagreement within a relationship. Think about how many married couples have, and we've talked about this and we've sat here at the table and talked about the fight. You have the same fight every 6 weeks, every month, different details, but it's the same fight. And then if we look at historical marriages, they didn't get divorced. They just became numb to each other. They were over it.
Yeah.
We're not going to fight about that anymore. We're over it. No, you're not.
Right.
No, you're not at all. You've now lost intimacy. You've lost that beautiful relationship with one another. And then other less traumatic hurts, that, they said this, they did that, but, I'm over it. I know they didn't mean it, And so these are the kind of things that people say they're over when they're really not.
Right, because it doesn't matter if they didn't mean it. You're still hurt.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Okay, sir.
Absolutely. And what they're really saying, is they don't want to, or they just can't deal with the pain anymore.
Right.
I mean, we see that a lot.
Yeah.
It's a way of fooling yourself to say, I'm moving forward, but like you really aren't moving forward.
Right.
You're just telling yourself, yeah, I'm good. I'm moving forward.
Yeah, because, and think of, again, with the marriage analogy, but it can be the same with brothers. I mean, think of how many families you know. It's so funny. I'm surveying the room right now in the back of my mind, like where siblings don't speak anymore. I mean, I think we all know at least a couple people who have siblings or family members or an uncle or whatever that they don't talk anymore.
Right.
Because guess what? They couldn't deal with it anymore. And I'm over it. I'm not even going to try anymore.
I don't talk to most of my extended family anymore. On my dad's side, it was a big family. I had lots of cousins and aunts and uncles, and I've chosen not to be around them anymore. And there's nothing that's been done inherently to me. Like it's just been one of those conscious things where like, I guess I have hurts that part of me is like, yeah, I'm over that. I don't want to go to that family function.
But you didn't have the need or the value of the relationship to go through, to push through it.
Correct.
Like it wasn't a huge hurt.
Right. Like,
but it's not a huge loss.
What do you really mean to me?
Yeah, right.
I think another reason why people say, oh, I'm over it, is that whatever it was isn't pressing anymore. You know, like it can be coworkers that aren't there anymore. It could be a family member that, you know, well, they're not around anymore. That I'm not going to see them. So I'm just over it. I'm just going to move on.
Right.
Or, you know, you were, you know, it could have been a bad class and it was a terrible teacher or professor and they didn't make any sense. And you're like, well, I don't have that professor anymore. So I'm over it.
Yeah, it's like those storms you come through that seem really big at the time, but then you realize, what did that really mean to me? There's no ramifications. There's no attachment at this point. So yeah, I'm over it. It's easy to tell yourself you've moved on from that situation when the tentacles like aren't around you anymore, you know?
Another avenue, if we go look at the relationships, you know, the fight may not be happening anymore. That's why we say it happens like every month to 6 weeks, you have the same fight. And so once the fight is over, you're like, okay, well, I'm over it. And so the details don't come up again. The situation, the environment, you know, if it's a shopaholic or every time your mother comes over or whatever, well, guess what? Mom's coming back. You know, mom's going to move back into or come back into town to visit. And guess what? You're going to have the same fight over and over again. But because mom's not there, well, we don't have the fight.
Right.
Or, you know, you got divorced because it was so bad. So I'm just over it. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. You know, if you're always fighting with somebody and then, you know, or it's an abusive relationship for that matter, emotionally, then the relationship's no longer there. You're what? Well, you're over it. You've moved on. I've gotten past it.
Right.
Did you? No,
Right.
you really didn't.
Right.
And one I had recently, I encouraged a guy. I said, listen, you've got a lifetime of hurts from your upbringing. You know, and he had shared some of them with me. And he was asking me for help with moving on, you know, and actually he was asking me for help in another area of his life. And I said, you know, here's what you want to do in the short term. I said, but in the long term, I said, you've got to heal from the hurts that you experienced as a child through your teenage years. And it was a great lunch. And he kind of paused. And it was like the first time that he didn't just completely accept everything that I had said, you know. And he paused and he was like, well, he goes, I don't know, because, you know, I've talked to my mom and, you know, I understand why everything happened. And I understand, you know, where she was coming from and a lot of the decisions she made that ended up hurting me. So I really don't think I have to go back and heal because I understand why those things happened. He had a cognitive understanding of why he was hurt. So therefore, he didn't have to go back and heal. And I think very often, sadly, people don't even do that.
Right. Right.
Like they're still stuck in the trauma of an event. They don't get to the cognitive understanding of the event. And that they're like, no, I'm over it because I understood why they did what they did. But Ben, let me ask you this. What's faulty about that thinking? Why is that not over it? If you say, well, I understand why it happened.
Because you still haven't healed from it.
See this
Look at
kid?
this guy.
See this guy?
Yeah.
And yet he's beating himself up a year ago, and yet he gave an answer that 99% of adults
Right.
wouldn't give.
Yeah.
There's the head knowledge and then there's the actual practice of healing.
Yeah, it's you can understand it, but there's no healing from it. So the reasons why you're not actually over it, if you want to think about it, is if it's trauma. I mean, I'm talking like trauma, and I'm no expert on trauma, but I'm aware of it and I understand. Like it literally changes your brain. You know, I was looking at a video the other day where a guy's talking about it, and it was like, you know, looking for signs you're suffering from PTSD, and it was, you know, do you feel like the worst possible outcome is going to happen? You know, this is something good could happen, something bad could happen. And if you always choose bad, well, that's a sign. And then when you are thinking of what people are thinking about you, is it positive or is it negative? And it's like, well, it's negative. And literally your brain gets rewired. The Body Keeps the Score is the book, you know, that I was reading during 2020, the pandemic. And it just, in a little too much detail, it goes into the different parts of the brain. You know, there's times where I had to fight through because I was like, I'm not going to be tested on this. Just give me simple,
Right.
you know. But it literally changes your brain. So if you be like, oh, I'm over it. No, your brain is different. If somebody took your arm off and put it on backwards, you can't be like, I'll just
I'm
reach
good.
the other way.
Yeah.
Like that, your brain doesn't work that way.
Like a disc golf game a little bit.
And if somebody says that, well, that relationship's over, so I'm just moving on. Well, what's the danger in that? I'm just going to move on. It was a bad relationship, so I'm just going to move on. I'm over it.
everything that happened to you for you to evaluate that was a bad relationship, you're going to carry into the next relationship. And you're going to be evaluating that relationship through that lens because you have no other way to approach it at that point in time unless you heal. So that's unfair to you. That's unfair to the other person. And every time that they throw up one of those flares that reminds you of that last relationship that you didn't heal from, that's going to alter the whole bent of that future, that current relationship. Right. Because you haven't healed from it. You don't have a blank slate to enter into that relationship with. You're always bringing that past into that relationship. And that's not fair to you. That's not fair to the other person.
I remember I was dealing with a couple once. And again, I don't do marriage counseling. I'm not a licensed therapist. I like to do marriage teaching. But then every once in a while, a couple, somebody that I've known from high school or whatever. And the guy had a bit of a drinking problem. The girl had a lot of trust issues, as well she should. And, and I said, listen, here's my encouragement is each of you needs to go get therapy. I said, on your own, individually. I said, and once you've healed.
So you didn't recommend couples. It was
then I said I encourage you guys to get couples therapy. I said, but you're both so broken and it's so evident. Like for me, it was just like, well, that's clear. And I said, and listen, they weren't married. I said, you're free to break up. Yeah. I said, but you're just going to find the exact same thing in the next person. Because guess what? You're not over it. You're not over the hurt that happened to you. I mean, this is like a double not over it. You're not over the hurts that happened to you as a child. You're not over the hurts that you've incurred to each other. And if you guys just break up, nothing's solved.
Yeah. It's the hurt people. Well, classic,
And there are those repetitions that like subconsciously you're looking for because you haven't reworked those paths in your brain. Like somebody that I know, a relative of mine, they are on like their 4th or 5th marriage or relationship. They've been maybe married 3 times and are now on a relationship and every single one has been abusive. And it's like, how can you keep looking for, like it almost is like you're intentionally looking for this person to fill this abuse in your life. Like, why can't you find a good person for you that's going to actually be good for you? But it's amazing to see that pattern because logically you're like, get out of that.
Right.
Don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
But they look for the person that beats them. They look for the person that degrades them.
It's wild.
Because their level of self-condemnation is so huge. That's where their hurts go.
Yeah.
I'm not worthy of having a good relationship.
And to your point, Jay, is they've never rewired. They've never allowed their brain to be rewired by healing. That's just the pattern. It's the groove. It's like water going through the same, canyon or whatever.
And I think the greatest reason, and it goes through all of these, that people aren't over it is they don't understand that emotional hurts, and Ben, you brought this up, are hurts. Just like everybody understands physical hurts.
I got punched in the eye.
Of course.
Punched in
the eye.
Double.
Right.
Yours, because you got punched in the eye. But oh my gosh, was that a physical? Was it the eye or the face?
Wait, when?
When you were like 12.
In the mouth. That big meaty freaking fist coming into my braces.
In general, I thought you were talking about your very
own.
Oh,
no.
Well, but very obviously people are like, oh, you're better now because your lip healed. No.
Yeah, I still got that going on in my brain. I still see that big meaty fist.
The emotional hurts are literally that. And so as I was, and need to be healed just as much as physical ones do. And so as I was sitting with that guy, we were sitting at Eaton Park. I said to him, he said, I don't really need to heal from that because I understand why everything happened. And I said, okay. I said, so right now, if a cook came out of the back and they were carrying a knife and he tripped over the stool at the bar and then he slipped on butter and he plunged the knife into your shoulder, cognitively, he didn't mean to stab you. And that he lost his balance on the stool and then furthermore slipped on the butter that was on the ground. And that's why the knife is in your shoulder. So I asked him, I said, if you cognitively know all those things, do you need to fix the 3-inch hole in your shoulder? And he was like, Ben is being such a great host, nodding, smiling, shaking his head. And I said, co-host.
Well, all the people on YouTube see that.
But he looked and he was like, huh. And I think that is an analogy that everybody needs to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
That-
The wound is still there.
You don't sit there
Can't
and go,
change that.
Oh, I know why
Right.
that wound's there.
Right.
And the cook didn't mean it.
It's
You know-
not going to stop it from bleeding.
It's not
Right.
gonna, and it's not going to stop an infection.
Yeah.
And it's not going to stop it from limiting your movement.
You have to treat that
You have
like
to.
as immediately as possible.
Nobody in the right mind would say,
I'm good.
it's fine.
Right. Maybe a Navy SEAL. I don't know.
I'm over it.
I'm over it.
Over it.
Hey, you have a gaping wound in your shoulder, Ben.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'm over it.
Only, perhaps, a knight who had had his legs and arms cut off.
It's a mild flesh wound.
Just a flesh wound.
Flesh wound.
And so you know, instead of excusing it away, saying, it's not that big of a deal. Well, no, it is a big deal because it's really a hurt. Instead of saying, and giving I don't want to say a qualification, but like a motivation to the perpetrator. Well, they didn't mean to do it. Does it matter?
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter if he meant to do it, didn't mean to do it. People are hurt. And should it hurt less? I mean, maybe it would hurt more if they meant to do it, I guess. Well, but I guess if that guy meant to stab him, it would have gone in a little deeper.
Yeah.
Regardless, you're hurt.
Right. Regardless, you're hurt, you know, but there is that, okay, this wasn't really malevolent. You know, and I think that there can be healing in that aspect. Like when you understand that somebody didn't necessarily mean to do this, but that doesn't, like you said, it doesn't change the fact that
It keeps it from being worse.
It keeps it from being worse, right? Like there's a certain place you can get to and be like, all right, I'm good with this. At the same time, you're still bleeding. You still got to get stitches.
I want to run with the analogy a little bit further, just as far as it takes us, because I just thought to myself, somebody like Ben, okay, he's sitting at Eaton Park, cook comes out, whatever else. You know what Ben would say to the guy?
Sorry,
I shouldn't have been sitting here.
sorry, I was in the wrong place.
I shouldn't have been sitting here. That's my fault. I'm sorry that you stabbed me.
Yeah.
You know, for people who's
Which
hurt,
boggles my mind.
right? But like you can be like, oh, this guy's gonna feel so terrible because he stabbed me.
The best is I shouldn't have been sitting here because somebody sat you there. It wasn't even on you.
I could have sat. I could have sat
If
at
I'd
the
have just
counter.
been 3 inches over on this booth, maybe.
So let's run through that with the 4 places that hurts go. So they're hurt because they have a knife in their shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay. So you just went over guilt.
Yeah.
Right.
Anger. I mean, it's
That one's
it's
easy. I
pretty
guess.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like I'd be pretty upset.
Again, that'd be my
Angry.
first instinct. Like,
Okay. So let's play it out for the analogy. I'm sorry, I interrupted you and I didn't
no,
mean to. Please go
I
ahead.
had no other thought in my head.
Okay, so the angry guy.
Sometimes I
So
just start
okay, let's go away from guilty Ben to
See where it goes.
what we used to like to call angry Brian. So Brian gets stabbed in the shoulder by a clumsy guy.
Yeah.
Brian gets angry. So Brian beats the living crap out of that cook.
With a knife that's still in
Does
my
he
arm.
still need to heal?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, he
Yes.
But I'd heal after I beat
So
him.
does the cook now.
does. He's got to hurt. He's got to fix. Eric is sitting there.
Yes.
Self-condemnation.
Self-condemnation. Knife gets plunged into his shoulder.
At
and
least I'm worthy to get a knife.
of course, this would happen to me.
Yeah.
I had to come here and sit at this booth in
Yeah.
this exact
Yeah.
spot.
I probably ruined this cook's day.
Maybe
Just-
there's-
It's
now,
probably
the,
his
now the
favorite
knife's
knife.
broken. He can't use it to cook with.
I'm the worst
Yeah.
Eaton Park person ever.
And then fear would be, of course, this would happen to me because this always happens to me. Or would that be self-condemnation?
It's a little more self-condemnation. Fear is it's. I mean, that's
Fear
no
is like,
solution. Fear is
worried
no
every
solution.
day.
Fear's like, well, this is going to happen. Anywhere I go, this is going to
I'm
happen
never
again.
going to go to an Eaton
Right.
Park
I'm
again.
never going to sit in a booth
That's it.
again.
Right.
I'm
Yep.
never going to go out. I'm going
Right.
to stay
That's
in
gonna
my
block
home.
you from any future
But they
experience.
still have a knife
Right.
sticking in their shoulder.
Right.
Right.
Like in all those are the things that we do and say emotionally
Right.
in a physical sense.
Right.
And none of them work.
Right.
So rather go to our podcast where we talk about comfort because that's the only thing that heals. And I shared with the guy and I said, listen, sit with your wife, pick anything, and I said, I will work with you guys to teach you how. I said, but go over the most simplest thing that your mom did that hurt your feelings when you were 13, 12, 10, whatever. And I said, you remember, so let's go back to Eaton Park. if I sit there and I say, man, you were just sitting there having a good lunch with a guy who was just great to talk to, and he was engaging, and he was listening to you, and it was the best lunch you'd ever had. And then out of the blue, you felt this searing pain in your shoulder. I said, and if I start to like choke up and how scary it was and everything else, you'll always remember me comforting you when you tell the story of the time you got stabbed at Eaton Park. And he was like, yeah, oh, yeah, I guess so. And that's what it is. Comfort is attached to that grief. You can't explain it away. You can't analyze it away. You have to have somebody feel what you felt in that moment. And so if we go through our other examples, like how much you deserve to have a good relationship and how frustrating it must be to have that same fight over and over again. And you see somebody's like, no, it wasn't your fault, or what was your fault wasn't all your fault. We are attaching comfort to the pain, to the hurt, because they joined you in your emotion in that moment. And that begins the healing process. Nobody goes through that.
Right.
And so we've talked about it. We've added comfort to grief on a couple different episodes. And that is really the only thing. I mean, you can analyze it, you can understand it, you can focus on it, you can do all those things. It ain't going to work.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody join you in your emotions. And it's not pleasant. I faded away on purpose.
You did.
I did on purpose. It's not pleasant.
Hey, Ben, so coming through your 2 college years, if you care to share, what would be some of the things or a thing that you feel that you may have told yourself, I'm over it, but you may not be over it? This is going to make for good radio.
Listen to the pauses.
There's a lot to be said for those moments in between.
I don't know.
Without blowing up anybody's spot.
Yeah, without blowing anybody's spot. But
Right.
do you feel like you've arrived at a place where you feel you've gotten over everything properly?
I don't know how. No, I think the answer to that is no. I think I've accepted a lot of things and I've healed substantially, but I still do think that there's work to be done.
Let me ask you this question, if I may.
Please.
Last year, you were with Benjamin.
Yes.
That was
Wait.
your roommate.
Yes.
Yes. There was Ben
Yourself?
and Benjamin. No, okay. Yeah, well, his dad actually just put a mirror in his room. It was really weird that he bought it.
Sounds like Chris.
So
Yeah.
in the towers?
And he was a good guy. Ooh, you paused.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. He was a great guy.
Perfectly fine, whatever. Stranger.
Still paused.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
No,
like-
great guy.
like, how often do you hang out this year?
Oh, not at all.
Okay, thanks. So now you're living with
I'm
Joe
living with-
some of the time, whenever he's down there,
Yes, and Luke.
and Luke. What is the difference if you have a bad day or you have a good day in sharing it with your roommates?
It's a huge difference to be able to come home and at the end of the day to be able to have Luke and Joe there to comfort and support me. I know for me a big part of it is support too. Support is one of my greatest needs. But yes, like just to have them be able to join me in my emotions in a way that I couldn't with Benjamin.
Well, and they know you, and they're also in the same life stage as you.
Yes.
So they're very understanding.
And at least Joe is somewhat aware of emotional needs.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, which between your freshman year and your sophomore year, do you think you felt more alone last year? And that can also be that you got more involved with the band this year. I'm not just saying that Joe and Luke are the greatest things in the world, but it seems that you have more quality relationships this year that go deeper and are more real than you did last year.
Absolutely. I felt more alone last year. Yes.
And I think freshman year of college, unless you're really prepared to go and know, like, and have those real relationships, that may be one of the loneliest times of your life. You know, going into a whole new environment and you kind of know who you are, but maybe not really. and you may not know anybody there. Like if you're going into that kind of setting, that might be a really difficult. We maybe should do a podcast on that.
Not a lot of people.
Like,
to
what are
hold
the
your hand-
loneliest times of your life?
Yeah, not a lot of people to hold your hand through things now. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
You know, first
Right.
step into
Disconnected
like
from your
adulthood.
parents. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
Yeah.
even if they live close or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So what you're saying is being alone is bad.
It's the worst.
It is the worst because it makes the bad times worse and the good times aren't as good as they can be.
One of mankind's first problems.
But it really is that we were meant to be in a relationship with other people. And when it's, you know, it's not just Ben in college, but it's the jobs we've had where we got along with our coworkers and we developed real relationships. It's the neighbors that are good neighbors and that actually, you know, and so our encouragement is to go ahead and not be over it, but to seek healing and seek real intimate, and don't giggle when you say intimate, relationships that we can share life with. And I think that's missing in a lot of our fragile, superficial, sterile, you know, TikTok, Instagram,
world. Yep.
Rumble. I'm just kidding.
MySpace.
That's it for episode 1. That's it for episode 193. Please make sure to give us a like or follow on social media and visit us at lunchtimeinrome.com. While there, take our relational needs questionnaire. Thanks for joining us at the table for Lunchtime in Rome.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.